Okay. Thank you so much. Bonjour, good afternoon, good morning, depending on which part of the world you're joining us. My name is Imalingu Saleh from the Great Republic of Kenya. I am super excited and happy to be a moderator on this discussion that will underscore the nexus between climate impact and gender equality. I'm a human rights advocate and I currently work at the Africa Women's Development and Communication Network. I'm also part of the Women and Gender Constituents, and it is for this reason that I'm also glad to be part of the United Nations Population Fund Youth Working Group, which of course has given young people like myself an opportunity to contribute to SRHR and climate action. But I'm not alone. With me, I have experts from all over Africa who seek to demystify how SRHR and climate action have a very close nexus. Some of us, as we already know, climate change exacerbates gender inequality across the globe. And women and girls like myself are most marginalized because we don't have the same economic and social resources as the people from the global north. But don't take my word for it. I'm going to invite our keynote, who's going to give an address just on the issues I've mentioned and so much more pegged on her experience. All the way from the United Arab Emirates, I would want us to welcome Alam Key. Please feel free to unmute and also give us the keynote for this discussion. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Your Excellencies, distinguished attendance, I'm happy to be part of this event. Allow me first to convey the greetings of Her Excellency Noura Khalifa Al Suwaidi, the Secretary General of the General Women's Union. Her thanks for inviting us to be part of this important session that addresses the climate change and the gender inequality across the globe. Today, I'm happy to be here presenting you our views in General Women's Union and in UAE in general. I believe the importance of this session is laying on the fact that it prompts us all to think about the sustainability of this planet that we live on, and how can we all work on work on to ensure the sustainability of the planet for our children, our future generation, because this matter requires the solidarity and the cooperation of all society members. I will share with you our experience in the United Arab Emirates and the General Women's Union initiatives. When we talk about women in UAE, I would like to say that the Emirati women have been and continue to be a strategic partner in maintaining the environment sustainability through optimizing the use of the natural resources. Before the oil production and discovery in the United Arab Emirates, the Emirati woman lived a very difficult life. That situation and that life obstacles made her become more environmentally and economically conscious. They have been relying on recycling materials from the surrounding of them in providing their daily requirements, like using the palm trees in the handicraft, also directing the family members to rationalize the consumption of water, electricity. As you know, before the oil, we used to have the UAE as a desert. So that's why the environmental issues among the women are very advanced in UAE, as I will be sharing with you some facts in this regard. In General Women's Union, through Her Highness Sheikha Fatima, the vision, her vision and her strategy, Sheikha Fatima is the chairwoman of the General Women's Union and the Supreme Council of the Motherhood and Childhood, and also the Supreme Chairwoman for the Family Development Foundation. We at Women's Union have taken on ourselves the responsibility to continue in building the women's capabilities in order to preserve the sustainability of the environment for the future generation. Her Highness, maybe you recall, in August we had our Emirati Women's Day, and Her Highness Sheikha Fatma have chosen a slogan or a theme that together we collaborate for tomorrow. This year, as this year's Emirati Women's Day theme. This theme or this message or slogan is aimed to emphasize that the woman plays a big role, and she's a strategic partner in maintaining the environmental sustainability. And today's session, we are all here to emphasize on the same message, because if you want to achieve the environmental sustainability, then we need to change the behavior among individuals. And women have a major role in this aspect, not only in decision making, but also being part of the family system in the upbringing of the future generation, the children. So based on this, I would like to share with you two important initiatives that we have launched, and we'll be working in the General Women's Union in this matter. We have one of the initiative is the sustainable homes. In this initiative, we are trying to emphasize on the importance of the daily practices among the family members by encouraging them to adopt an environmental friendly behaviors. And also we have another initiative that we also been working on it back from since 2017, and we're still continuing on it, is that we encourage women on home farming, not only to provide their daily needs of the agricultural crops, but also the way when they have this home farming, also we contribute in increasing the green space in the country, and this will also participate in reducing the climate change challenges. So these two are major events or initiatives that we are doing it. And today, when we talk about integrating the gender perspective into climate change, it is we need to also agree it's a vital matter, because we need to have women and the gender aspect in every thing in which deals with the climate change, in policies, in programs, in projects, because we need to make sure that the needs and the priorities and the experiences of both men and women are taken in consideration, because we need all this integrated. People may think why and ask why we need this gender mainstreaming. We need to understand that the climate change affects women and men in different ways, based on their roles, based on their responsibilities, based on their vulnerabilities. Therefore, we need to conduct gender responsive assessments and collect some data, analyze them, so that we can have a better picture on how the the climate change could be affect both men and women, and how can they both participate in solving these challenges. We need also to have gender aspect in designing innovative training programs, because today when we talk about environmental challenges and we talk about climate change challenges, eventually we need to have awareness among the people, and as mentioned earlier, women play a big role in this place. So we need to also to have training programs for policymakers, planners, all to participate and take and understand the gender aspect in the climate change matter. That's why we need to have this gender mainstreaming in this aspect. Also, we need to have gender mainstreaming in climate change, because we need also to have resources. We need funding for projects to empower women and to encourage her to be able to play the role that is required from her. I would like to end my keynote message today by pointing out the experience of UAE and in integrating the Emirati women in the environmental and the climate change issues. I believe that we have a pioneering experience, as the Emirati woman today plays a major leading roles in these issues. If you go through the statistics, you will see that today women are leading the most important profiles of the environmental strategy in UAE. We have the Minister of Environment and Climate Change is a woman. We have also two ladies are running or managing two entities at the local level in Abu Dhabi Emirate and Sharjah. The environmental agencies are run by women. We have also Dr. Nawal, who is presenting the UAE in arena where we are talking about renewable energy. And as you all know, we are looking forward to participate and hosting, the UAE is hosting the COP28. If you go through the team who behind this event and managing it, you will see a big, huge number of women taking role in organizing this event. So I'm happy for giving us this opportunity to be part of this session. I'm looking forward for the discussion to learn more from the experience that will be shared today. And thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you very much for that riveting keynote, Alamki. Indeed, climate change does affect women differently, and I'm happy that the United Arab Emirates has put women at the center stage and also will be spearheading the COP28. So now I want to shift gears. Without much further ado, I would like to welcome Angela Bascheri. I hope I'm saying your second name correctly. Please feel free to come in and share your presentation, and thereafter we'll invite keynote speakers to also comment. We will also invite other speakers to comment on the same. So Angela, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to share my screen. I have prepared for you a short presentation on just illustrating the linkage between climate change, gender, and sexual reproductive health and rights. And I would like to give you a snapshot of a latest review that we have done of the National Determined Contribution, a document, and we explore how gender, health, and aspect of rights and sexual reproductive health rights were integrated in the climate document. So I'm gonna open. So the impact of climate change on sexual reproductive health and rights. So we see the vision of human-centered sustainable development outlined by the ICPD program of action. So the development framework where I place the importance of gender equality as a foundation for economic development. We see climate change as a multiplier of the underlying vulnerability and gender inequality. And so in UNFPA, we have developed our value proposition, essentially a way in which we want to tailor our programming to strengthen resilience at the individual system level for emergency response, as well as ensuring better data. In terms of the impact of climate change on maternal health, there are more and more study coming through, especially in the last 5 years, that shows that the increase in heat worsen maternal health outcomes, and also affect the aspect, the maternal nutrition, and indirectly maternal health outcomes, as well as impacting the patterns of vector-borne diseases such as malaria or other maternal illness, including low birth weight. We also notice that there are strong indirect impact, like a disruption of emergency and access to services, and kind of the indirect impact due to increasing poverty and food insecurity due to climate-related shocks. In terms of the impact of climate change on access to family planning, we found that the climate change have a strong impact on disruption of access to commodities, and these have a major impact on women and girls, with an increase in unintended pregnancy and other subsequent consequences. We also find a strong impact between climate change and gender-based violence. So we know that during conflict and insecurity, the rate of gender-based violence goes up, and there are many studies that have documented this impact. So in this context, we have, I'm not so sure this video is going to work, but let's try. So we have this video where I kind of articulate the way we see the impact of climate change. But let me see if I can show it to you. It might be an issue with
the impact of the climate crisis on sexual and reproductive health and rights. It is time we build climate-resilient health systems to protect the well-being of all. The global climate crisis is one of the most pressing problems we face. It disrupts development, multiplies people's vulnerabilities, and worsens gender inequality. When a climate disaster hits, livestock and crops are lost. Households and livelihoods are destroyed. Girls may be removed from school and put to work to alleviate their family's financial hardships. A girl out of school is at risk of being married off to a much older man, leaving her vulnerable to intimate partner violence and HIV due to an imbalance of power. Her education and aspirations are ended. Women and girls often lose the ability to manage their reproductive health. Health services like family planning are interrupted and unintended pregnancies rise. No menstrual products and lack of clean water may prevent them from menstruating with dignity. More women die without qualified birth attendants. To reduce shocks during disasters, we must protect the health and well-being of all. Climate adaptation measures need to include strengthening health services, especially sexual and reproductive health. National health plans must include strategies for adapting and building resilience. Better emergency preparedness, response, and recovery is needed to prevent gender-based violence, which frequently accompanies climate emergencies. UNFPA champions gender equality and prevents and responds to gender-based violence. We ensure continuity of services for sexual and reproductive health, including access to safe birth services. We urge governments to include health in their nationally determined contributions, especially sexual and reproductive health, and to secure the resources needed to build resilient communities. Greener and just nations position health, education, and gender in their climate change plans. The time to build forward better is now. The impact of the climate crisis on sexual and reproductive health and rights.
Let me go back to the slideshow. Sorry. Okay. So I hope that video was clear, but it was intended to show the linkages on how climate change impacts sexual reproductive health and rights. And what I would like to do in the next segment is just show you the results of a global review, which we launched actually yesterday in London in a hybrid event. Is a global review done with Queen Mary University and funded by IDSC Canada, where we look at the results of 119 nationally determined contributions that were submitted in the second wave. And we look at how SRHR issues, gender, health issues, human rights, consideration for vulnerable group, and consideration for young people were represented in the NDC. And what we found is that 38 of the 119 that we review had some reference to sexual reproductive health. So either acknowledge that climate change has an impact on maternal health or gender-based violence or SRHR. And we found that the majority of the reference were on maternal health, followed by the gender-based violence, and a lot of very few reference on other kind of indicator. And we also find that the majority of the reference weren't looking at specifically intervention. They might have acknowledged that climate change has an impact on women and girls, but the chapter on adaptation wasn't articulating necessarily how the health system or the protection system would follow up action on that. So in a sense, there was an interesting story to tell in the sense that there is quite a lot of work that needs to be done. There was also some interesting best practices on how countries are successfully integrating those. I assume that is all fine with my sound, that you can hear me. We also review. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Please continue. I believe we're experiencing some technical hitch. I'm hoping Angela will be back in soon. Angela, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm back on the call. Can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
Sorry. Okay, so then we also review the health chapter. So we look at to what extent that the NDC acknowledge climate change impact on health. We found quite strong reference, 117. So almost all the NDC we review had a review on the health chapter. And but the way things were articulated in the health chapter was there was an acknowledge of the impact on health, but very few NDC illustrate a specific action in terms of strengthening the health system in that sense. Similarly, we look at gender. So the majority, despite 109 of the 119 review had some acknowledgement of disproportionate impact on climate change on women and girls. Only a fraction of that they had the specific gender mainstreaming. So we had like an acknowledge of gender mainstreaming, but very few had a specific gender transformative action followed up by funding. So we found that that kind of specific aspect needed more work. So in a nutshell, there was a lot of reference beyond maternal health and GBV. So there are a lot of reference to maternal health and GBV and very few on other area. The NDC show limited investment on SRHR and gender-related policy intervention, and there is generally a need for better data and evidence to articulate the impact of climate change on women and girls and marginalized groups. We also found that there was a need to integrate the vulnerability assessment or gender assessment to ensure that appropriate policy that are tailored to this issue. To better reflect the experience of the people facing multiple forms of discrimination. We also look at the aspect of population dynamic and human mobility and urbanization. So as we know, the world wealthiest 10% are responsible for almost half of the emission. And so the relationship between population and climate change is really through the per capita consumption determined by the mode of consumption, of depending on the topology of consumption patterns. And so we interestingly find a lot of countries that are also exploring urbanization aspect and looking how to build a greener and safer city. We know that in the next 20 years, 2.5 billion people will be living in urban centers that are yet to be developed. So it will be important, particularly important, how we build those centers in that context. We also look at aspect of migration and human displacement, and interesting, the report was showing some interesting case study from country on how they're managing and supporting migrants and refugees. And essentially, climate action, it's important that address the root causes of inequality and ensuring rights and choice for all community affected. We also look at other aspects like youth engagement and aspect of human rights. And we found again that the importance of ensuring that how to address the underlying causes of inequality and the importance of upholding right for all in the context of climate policy. So just to recap, the review shows that the need to strengthen national level evidence of the impact of climate change on women and girls, specifically on SRHR and GBV and harmful practices. It also identified the importance of greatest financial support and accountability for ensuring tracking of progress on those areas. the need to strengthen the gender transformative action through the inclusion of the impact on climate change on women's health, and ensuring that the human rights and no one is left behind on an implementation of adaptation policy. So in a nutshell, we see human rights and protection of women and girls, children, refugees, and displaced people, and people living with disability, an important principle of climate action. The report also goes on and show how practically stakeholders can use the finding of the report to engage and create a discussion on national level, where they can contribute to the national dialogue and also strengthening the evidence based on those interlinkages. So in a nutshell, as a call to action to COP28, one could propose that climate change disproportionately impacted most vulnerable women and girls, and there is a need of an intersectional approach that explicitly consider the existing barrier of inequality. We need to address other aspects of gender, such as sexual reproductive health and right, the protection of women and girls in conflict. And this can be done through a multi-pronged approach, so working not only at the system level, but also at the community level. In terms of financing, the finance allocated to women and girls is extremely low and insufficient. I think we need to aim to have a 50-50 split between adaptation and mitigation, and at least allocate 1% of the funding of global climate finance as part of the 100 billion target per year to be dedicated to gender responsive climate action. But unfortunately, we're quite far from that point. And also we found in another work the importance of engaging young people into climate action as a key stakeholders of the discourse, as we are essentially working on the impact on their life. So this is what I have for you today. I'm here to answer questions, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share this work with you.
Thank you very much, Angela. That was a very riveting presentation, and I'm happy that you've highlighted that climate change disproportionately affects women. I would want us to maybe dissect that further by inviting Laila Hatachet. Laila is currently the program specialist at UN Women, which is part of the Gulf Liaison Office, and she's going to be addressing the gender disparities in climate response and how it is essential for women to be part of this. And I think she's also going to give a snapshot on how climate change, peace, and gender are, we need actually another intersection on the same. So Laila, please feel free, shed more light. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for your valuable insights into the intersection between climate action, reproductive health, gender-based violence, and gender issues in general. It's my privilege to speak to you today in my commentary about the relationship between climate change and the Women, Peace and Security agenda, which is crucial and often overlooked connection. While these topics may seem unrelated at first, they are closely linked. And understanding this relationship is essential for addressing the pressing challenges facing our world today. Maybe we could start by examining what is the impact of climate change on women globally. Climate change mainly affects women, especially in vulnerable and marginalized communities. Women often bear the brunt of the consequences due to their roles as primary caregivers, food producers, and providers of water and fuel. Raising temperature, extreme weather events, and changing weather patterns can affect agriculture system, forcing women to work harder and travel longer distance to secure food and clean water. These added burdens can limit their opportunity for education and economic empowerment, contributing to cycles of poverty and inequality. Moreover, the impact of climate change doesn't stop at economic disadvantages. It also exacerbates existing gender-based violence and insecurity. Displacement caused by climate change, by climate-related disaster, often leads to overcrowded refugee camps where women and girls face a heightened risk of sexual violence and exploitation. The scarcity of resources can trigger conflict over land, water, further endangering the safety and security of women. In the face of these challenges, the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, adopted in 2000, is gaining global relevance in addressing the impact of armed conflict on women. It seeks to increase women's participation in peace processes, safeguard them from gender-based violence, promote gender integration in peace efforts, support women organization, and establish accountability mechanisms. This resolution is a crucial component of the Border Women Peace and Security Agenda, emphasizing that women are not merely conflict victims but also essential change agents in peace building. It advocates for their involvement in all aspects of conflict resolution, peace negotiation, and involvement in all aspects of conflict resolution, peace negotiation, and post-conflict recovery, underlining the need to address gender-based violence and to enhance women's participation in decision-making. Now, how, this, how does this agenda intersect with climate change? Well, it's about recognizing that climate change can be a driver of conflict and that the Women, Peace and Security Agenda offer a framework for addressing these conflicts while empowering women. As climate change increases resource scarcity and competition, it can also lead to displacement, migration, and tension within and between communities. Women often play important roles in conflict prevention and resolution at the community level, leveraging their social network and knowledge to build resilience and mediate conflict. By integrating gender-sensitive approach into climate adaptation and mitigation strategy, we can harness the potential of women as agents of peace and resilience. The link between climate change, gender equality, and peace become even clearer when we consider the importance of inclusive decision-making. The Women, Peace and Security Agenda emphasizes the need for women participation and in peace and security effort. Also, effective climate action requires the participation of diverse voices and perspectives, including those of women and marginalized groups. When women are engaged in decision-making processes related to climate policy, they can advocate for solutions that address the unique challenges they face and contribute to more equitable, effective climate policies. The relationship between climate change and the Women, Peace and Security Agenda is a vital one, extending beyond any specific region. Climate change intensifies gender inequality and insecurity, and the Women, Peace and Security offer a framework to address these challenges while empowering women as agents of peace and resilience at the global scale. To create a more sustainable and peaceful world, we must recognize that the connection of these issues and take action to ensure women's voices are heard and their rights are protected in the face of climate change. As we move forward, let's strive for policies and practices that promote gender equality, empower women, and build a more secure and sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I love the fact that you would want to integrate women in peace discussions and initiatives. That was very, very interesting and a deep dive. I'm hoping that we will have more time so that we can maybe give examples. But I'm also happy to now introduce Francisco Monteil. I hope I'm saying your name right, from the United Nations Research Institute for Social Development. He is the Senior and Social Affairs Officer and will also be giving more insight insight on how gender disparities in climate responses are essential, and also, of course, how we can have more discussions on the same in terms of inclusive, sustainable development, of course, linked on our sustainable development goals. Without much further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Francisco. Please feel free to unmute and chime in into this discussion.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to participate in this meeting. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge and congratulate the contributions of Madame Almaki, Madame Baskiri, and Madame Hatahat. Before I start, just let me spend a few seconds introducing UNRIST. We are the United Nations Research Institute on Social Development. And in a few words, we are a think tank within the UN that produces ahead of the curve and very progressive research that is independent and that informs policies in different areas. One of the main issues within our gender justice and development program is precisely feminism and climate change. And within the research and the evidence that we have produced, we have identified a few issues that in some way intersect with what has been said by my predecessors, but they offer as well new insights that I would like to share with you. Well, first of all, yes, it is true that climate change affects women more than men, but it also affects certain women more than other women, as we know. Um, Gender is obviously intersected by other axes of inequality like age, social class, race, ethnicity, and geographical location. And those women who experience different disadvantages are certainly more affected than, for example, women living in the global north. And for that reason, it's extremely important to have an intersectional approach to climate change and be very aware that women are not a homogeneous category, and it is really important to disentangle different inequalities. At UNRIS, we have produced a training course that is available to all the agencies on intersectionality and climate change that really provides very useful insights and practical examples to practitioners, and I would like to offer that to all the participants in this table. Secondly, there are important inequalities in representation and power, not only in the traditional power structures. When we look at a picture of the different COPs, we certainly see that women are underrepresented at alarming rates, and we really hope that we can see much more women in all the discussions in the forthcoming COP. But also within the interventions and within the different research pieces, we also see this power inequality. For example, in a research that we conducted in Brazil last year, we identified that policymakers paid attention to the organizing spaces of men, like the union meetings or the political meetings, but they did not pay attention to those places where women gather and also discuss questions about climate change, like, for example, in the churches on Sundays. A third point that is absolutely crucial for climate and gender equality is the issue of care. As we know, women carry out most of care work all over the world, but this is intensified in the global south, and in the absence of care systems or care facilities, when there is a phenomenon of a climate emergency, women are going to suffer far more than men. So other interventions like care systems can mitigate the negative effects of climate change, and we UNRIS, as part of the Global Alliance of Care, have been advocating for more research and more action in the field of just transitions and care. Besides the impact on sexual and reproductive rights, there is also another impacts on health. We know that when there is a climate emergency, some diseases like dengue, malaria, or Zika increase, and women are the carers either in the formal sector as nurses or informally at homes, and they run more risks to be infected. Another issue that Madame Baskieri mentioned is the gender violence, and UNFCA and UNFPA has done a lot of research, and a recent publication by Lancet highlights another aspect. And it seems that when livelihoods are affected by climate change, it increases violence because it also challenges some gender norms, such as the man is the breadwinner, and when the man cannot be the breadwinner because some of these disasters, it it can increase tensions and eventually lead to violence. So this is why at UNRIS we are working on identifying the cultural causes of masculinities, and we run a program, Masculinities, trying to address those factors of masculinities that affect women. Finally, migration, the link between migration, climate change, and the global chains of care is extremely important to look at. And we have seen that in the Pacific, in Asia, in the Middle East, and in the Americas as an important driver, climate change as an important driver of uh, of migration. And just to conclude my remarks, and from a research think tank point of view within the UN system, it is really important to increase the research and the conceptualization of gender, feminism, and climate change. We have to understand more about the causalities. We are concentrating too much on the figures right now, but we really have to understand the structural causes. We have to understand the different causalities, and advance more research. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I wish we could have more time so that we could maybe even go further and look at the care systems. I like what you mentioned, that in the absence of a care systems, women are likely to suffer more than men. And this is actually very, very true. And it is actually for this reason why intersectional approach is very paramount. It's also part of the recommendations in this year's 2023 synthesis report, but I will not delve so much into that. I'm going to invite Mona Ganda, who is the head of programs at the Abdullah Al Gurai Foundation. I hope I've said it so well. Please come in and also just give us views on how we can enhance education. I'm hoping that people could extend a little bit more, because I know we are pressed for time, but I'll be happy to see also part of the discussions from the audience, so that we don't have a presentation that is only one-sided. So I hope if you're online, you'll just stay in a bit more, and then maybe I'll pick some questions from and views also from your end. So without much further ado, Mona, I would like to invite you. Please feel free to come in and also give us views on the intersection of education, gender equality, and climate action. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Imali, and Thank you for the esteemed speakers. It was truly insightful to listen to your viewpoints and insights. I'll try to be very quick so that we allow time for questions. So just good afternoon. And on behalf of Abdallah Al Ghurair Foundation, I'll just speak about the intersection of gender equality, education, and climate change. This is a vital topic. The global community is grappling with the profound challenges that are posed by climate change. And the climate crisis is leading to adverse effects that are impacting individuals, livelihoods, economies, and ecosystems. And as we all said, while it has impact on everyone, it does affect us all not in the same way. So the climate crisis has a greater impact on the world's most vulnerable groups, amplifying already existing inequalities. So for instance, women, girls, and refugees bear a higher burden. The UN Environment, for example, estimated that 80% of people displaced by climate change are women. Likewise, the education sector, especially for these vulnerable groups, is disproportionately affected, whether through the damage of education infrastructure or psychosocial stress on learners. And since in the context of climate change, education plays a pivotal role in enhancing awareness and understanding, reduced access to education can result in lower participation in climate action, more so for vulnerable populations. And this really calls for urgent action to address the climate crisis and promote green recovery to help develop a resilient and sustainable society. We know that a green recovery scenario could lead up to 3.5% additional GDP growth globally, or more than 9 million jobs. If we talk about the UAE specifically, by 2030, the UAE's green economy is projected to generate around 160 new jobs. So what we need to do, we need to prepare the next generation for these potential jobs. It is essential to upskill youth and prepare them for a rapidly approaching and advanced future. And the good news is that youth are eager to participate in climate action and are ready to drive positive change within their communities. For example, a 2022 UNESCO report based on a survey for 490 responses of Arab climate actors, what they found was that 80% of youth cited spreading awareness in their communities as the main motivation for sourcing, generating, and disseminating climate knowledge. And another report by the Arab Youth Center, and this one was focused specifically on women, found that 84% of the women asserted their belief that they can influence their country's climate change policy, and 57% were actually interested in studying in sustainability-related field. So here lies our collective responsibility to equip youth with the skills and knowledge necessary to navigate a future marked by threats of climate change. So how do we do that? Well, the first step is we need to have an inclusive climate action, must focus on making education accessible, comprehensive, and contextualized. So in the same UNESCO report, 70% of the youth surveyed could not explain climate change, can only explain its broad principles, or do not know anything about it. So by incorporating tailored climate education into formal curricula and promoting climate literacy, we empower youth, especially women and girls, to become informed decision makers and responsible stewards of our planet. But as we know, education is not a one-size-fits-all. To maximize its impact, it must be inclusive and equitable. And this brings me to my second point, which is gender equality. As gender disparities persist in many parts of the world, limiting women's access to education and opportunities. Women and girls, and we know that, and we've seen that, and we have many stories to share about that, when given a platform and resources, have demonstrated their ability to drive innovative solutions and mobilize communities effectively. So we must recognize the importance of fostering a more informed and engaged society in addressing inequalities in climate action. If we look at the UAE, and Mrs. Lamki shared so many examples, the UAE has taken significant steps to empower both youth and communities, enabling them to actively engage in climate action. As a testament, for example, we have the long-standing commitment of the UAE. We have the Women in Sustainability, Environment and Renewable Energy platform that is dedicated to inspiring women and girls to play an active role in addressing global sustainability challenges through convening leaders, mentoring young girls, and promoting discourses. Additionally, The Ministry of Education, in partnership with UNESCO and UNICEF, they just announced the Green Education Partnership Roadmap, which has 4 pillars: greening schools, greening learning, greening capacity, and greening communities. This roadmap is directly aligned with our strong belief that responsibility to address climate crisis is a shared responsibility among stakeholders, and that education is key to creating sustainable future. And our focus as a foundation lies in educating the next generation as the driving force behind the necessary transition to greener and more resilient future. So currently the foundation is working in collaboration with the ministry under the 4th pillar, which is greening communities. This strategic partnership that we have with the Ministry of Education includes an ecopreneurship bootcamp for youth and 24 climate awareness workshops to engage and empower communities. Climate awareness workshops, which we're designing in partnership with the local organization Gumbuk, enable participants to become active agents in the fight against climate change. We do activities with them like planting trees, beach cleanups, reducing food waste, which we aim to open participants' eyes to the intricate connections between individual actions and global climate crisis. We emphasize that if every small daily decision has the power to create ripples of change that eventually, collectively create the transformative impact that we need. The Ecopreneurship Bootcamp, which we're also doing in collaboration with a Sharjah-based entity called Shara, will support youth in realizing their sustainability-focused startup ideas. What else do? We believe that we have to work to unlock technical and transferable skills that are required for a fast-approaching digital and green future. By doing this, we aim to promote youth meaningful contribution through green jobs and entrepreneurship. So we have Tech Up program, a digitally upskilling program through which we reached 17,000 youth to equip them with in-demand future-facing skills. More than 60% of those are women. And while technical skills are, of course, essential in addressing the digital aspects of climate change, we also understand the power of soft transferable skills. We all know the power of storytelling. Great storytelling can influence communities, elicit emotions, and inspire positive action. So at the foundation, we have Siraj, which is a program that we launched with CNN Arabic to help support youth in building their storytelling skills, to spread awareness and to advocate for a positive climate action. We've worked with more than 200 youth and 70% of them are females, are women. To inspire fellow girls and women as part of Her Story initiative, we also partnered with CNN to enable 30 women to share their stories of positive impact on their communities. These projects are all aligned with commitment to provide youth with pathways to opportunities with high quality education and skills building. They emphasize the powerful nexus for positive change that emerges at the intersection of gender, education, and climate action. Through these projects, we can empower women and youth to be climate advocates and foster a more informed and engaged society. And I will end by just reminding everyone here today that our collective efforts to invest in these intersections and empower communities can drive climate action. Together, we can definitely achieve a greener and more equitable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mona. And it's just such a riveting presentation. I'm really sorry that you're pressed for time. I was actually looking at some of the comments on our box, and I realized that there are quite a number of people who are responsive. Sarah and Edison, thank you so much for sharing your contacts. I'm sure there are so many people who will be happy to contact you. Romeza and Zainab, I hope you are able to adjust your audio settings. I'm just gonna read one or two. There was actually a request to you, Francisco, to share the link for the training that you mentioned. If you have the link already, please feel free to share it on the chat box. And I'm also happy that Zainab, you have been following on this discussion, and you did actually mention that it would be crucial for us to engage with experts and maybe have a deep dive on in the environment crisis. So actually all the panelists are experts in their own domain. The essence of this discussion was basically to have a linkage between climate impact and gender equality. And I actually love the comments that you have on. They're actually very interesting. Hopefully in subsequent discussions, we will have more robust discussion on social solidarity, health, and economic empowerment. But this particular discussion focused largely on the work that individuals in their private capacity were doing and their areas of expertise. Please feel free to email Francisco. He's put his email on the chat box, just in case you have more questions on the same. I know it's 3 minutes past 2. I'm gonna leave this opportunity for maybe one person who has a pressing question to any of our panelists. If you have a question that you feel should not be left behind, in the spirit of leaving no one behind, please feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we'd have to close this meeting because it's now 3 minutes past 2 p.m. East African time, and it's also past the hour that we had envisaged for this discussion. But I would not want to leave anyone behind. If you have a pressing question, please feel free to let me know. Going once, going twice. Great. I guess we have no questions from our audience. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I'm just gonna invite our panelists to have any parting shots. If anyone has any parting shots, please feel free to unmute your mic, because it would be great also to have maybe one last view from any of our panelists. I know for our final speaker, you're really pressed for time. In case you had one thing that you didn't get a chance to mention, now would be the time to. Okay.
No, thank you very much. It's been great, but I really have to drop off the call. But I wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity, and definitely would love to connect with all the guests and listeners at another opportunity. Thank you.
Understandably so. Okay, thank you very much for your time. My name has been Imali Ngusale. I've been happy to moderate this session. I look forward to seeing you in the corridors of social media and engagements and other engagements. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye.